Guess we can go ahead and get started. Do we have anybody that we need to be thinking about? Anybody who's had a tough time or? Yeah.
We had this young gentleman at the Sober Living House that I'm at go AWOL.
Mm-hmm.
So we've all been praying to hope that he comes back.
Okay. All right. Very good. Very good. Anybody else?
Ryan.
His name's Ryan? Well, we'll leave that. Yeah.
Having a procedure in the morning.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the lightning all night long. But we were out at Urban Air at about 2:30, 3 o'clock, and there was a lightning that hit, and it had to be real close to the building because it shook. I'm sitting on a concrete floor, and it shook the chair that I'm sitting in. It was loud. Man, it was loud. But let me guess, you were in a tractor, or were you saying that I shook the chair?
I didn't work until midnight. So
Oh, well.
I could hear the rain because we had 12 pallets of insulation that they set outside to get wet. So, yeah. So I got a nice shock.
Yeah. So you had to try to get all that in and keep it dry?
Then I was going to leave early. We had it all set up because we're supposed to work till 11. It's slow. I'm going to leave at 10:30 and then,
So 12 o'clock is not early.
So anyway.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So we've got Ryan and Paul, and thanks for the rain. All right. Let's go ahead and have a prayer. Dear Lord, our Father in heaven, we come to you today. We're thankful that we can be your servants and that you have sent Jesus Christ to teach us what we need to be doing and show us a fine example that he was. We ask, Father, that you be with Paul tomorrow as he goes through a procedure, and we pray for a good outcome from that procedure. And we ask that you be with Ryan, and please, Father, impart on him the wisdom of trying to stay sober and not get into any trouble. We also ask, Father, that we want to thank you for the rain that you blessed us with yesterday. We needed it a lot, and I think you are always there to take care of us when we are in need. We thank you, Father, that we have one another to lean on, fellowship with one another, and we ask that you be with us always as you always have been. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. All right. Well, one of the things I noticed when I put this thing together was I gave credit to Jim Putman for putting this book together. But then I looked at it and I thought, well, that's not just him. And I didn't want to type out every name that's on here. But it's Jim Putman, Avery T. Willis, Brandon Guindon, and Bill Krause. But I think Jim Putman is the main guy who put this training manual together. And then I'm teaching this class with Wes Topol. My name is Steve Haas. But see that? I've been taught how to use a slideshow. Isn't that great? So what is a disciple? That's what chapter 2 is about. Before we get started, let's get an idea of what everybody thinks a disciple is. Do we have anybody that has any indication of what a disciple is? Follower? Let me see. Well, I'm not gonna type it in. That might be too much trouble. A follower? I can do this. Student? Student? Teacher? Leader? And how do you know when you've done a good job being a disciple? Example, yeah. When you can see, like you said, your fruits, when you can see that you have made a disciple who has gone on out to be a disciple, that's a good indication that you're a good disciple. So, yeah, those are all good things. As you see, I only had 4 spots, so we did good. You have something, or are you just thinking, okay, you had a look on your face like, no. All right, so let's take a look at Matthew 4:19. Could somebody read that for me? Can you all see that okay now that I know how to use PowerPoint? Yeah, okay.
Come follow me, send you out to fish for people.
All right. Okay, so let's break that down. Follow me. There's 3 points in this verse. One is to follow me. And then who's going to do this for us? Jesus. Now, this is talking to Peter, James, and John. You know, they're the fishermen out on the water. He tells them to go back out and fish again. And then they get all these fish, and he comes back and he says, follow me and I will make you fishers of men. And so even though he is personally talking to Peter, James, and John there, he's talking to us too. So what does it mean for us to follow Jesus? To follow, we must come under his authority and direction. And that's kind of where I think this section's going. Eventually we're going to get into a part where it's talking about head, heart, and hands, but we're not quite there yet. How good are we at following Jesus? On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you think we rate? Let's say as a church. Do we follow blindly? Do we kind of sometimes follow and not follow, where it'd be like a 3 or a 4? I know we're better than a 1.
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah?
I was impressed. I mean, I'm still fairly new, and I was just overwhelmed by just how wonderful I was approached and the direction this church is going and the interaction.
Right. Right.
So
I know.
I'm going to say 8.5, 9.
That's a good answer.
Compared to most places we have been, I would say 8 or 9 also.
Right. Right.
We've been on-
And that's about where I would put it. Partially because when I first got here, I was coming from a church I loved up in Washington. Man, they were great people. And I got here, and you weren't the same. You weren't the same as them. And so it took me quite a while to finally click in and fit in. But you guys wouldn't leave me alone. So you made me fit in. You made me enjoy it. And I personally think that's part of being a disciple, is keep working on somebody until they feel part of you, feel one with you. About 90 people, pretty small. But when I got there, I spied on them. Maybe that's not Christian, I don't know. But they were building a new building, and back in those days, man, I loved working with my hands. And so I sat in the parking lot across the street, and I watched them as they put up, it's a building in the round, you know, and they were just putting up those center beams. And I watched that, and I thought, I could be part of that. So, but it was a lot of fun, had a good time there, helped with their youth quite a bit, and just was a great congregation. But
So you didn't spy on us?
no, my daughter was already here, so I didn't have to. So my daughter was here. My wife was here when she was here in Wichita, and then I had to come along, you know. So I'm glad they forced me to be here. Is that a good way to say that? Yeah.
Well, during this last 2 years with chemo and everything, people were sending in cards and phone calls and everything. And I had been going to Central Christian,
Mm-hmm.
and people in the cards were so loving, and they even said they were praying for me,
Morning.
and they didn't even know me.
Right.
And so I finally decided to come here, and everybody just embraced me.
And these cards were all from here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all these, yeah.
Yep.
And I couldn't believe how different it was. Central Christian has 3,000 people, you know, but this is just an amazing.
That's the one up on Rock Road.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
By Walmart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I couldn't believe how different this place is because of the people.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm here.
Yeah. It's very good. Very good. All right. When he says, I will make you, that focuses on changing us. And kind of that's what you guys did to me, you know. At first, I just didn't feel like I fit in. I was just here because my wife and daughter were here. But slowly but surely, you guys changed me. You changed me to where I enjoy being here. Yeah. Look at me now. So, yeah. John's been working hard on me all along. I think all of the elders have worked hard on me. Michael, me and John and several others. We go to coffee on Tuesday mornings, and it's just enjoyable. I like being here. How are we changed as we stay in a relationship with Jesus? What changes can we expect? Let's say you're going from not being part of a church at all, not being a disciple at all. What kind of changes can you expect? Mm-hmm. Yep. The way you look at others, maybe? Yep.
We look more like him if we're with him
Right.
constantly.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things he brings out here is that we become more like him. Morning.
I'm going to say fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
That you were missing out on is filled.
Right.
Like there's a void or something.
Yeah, you're missing something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, being able to fill that void, whether it be through fellowship or being here and being one with the body. One of the things I love is watching somebody get baptized, and it's like suddenly they're part of a family. And I always tell them every time I say, welcome to the family, because, you know, before they were separate. They are no longer separate from the body. They are part of the body now. So I really enjoy it when somebody gets baptized. I still get that feeling of when I got baptized. So, yeah.
One of the changes that happens is the change of surprise. You surprise yourself at some of the things that you get to do, and then the things that you end up loving to do.
Right.
When I got to El Pico, the last thing I wanted to do was go to a hospital and visit with someone.
Right.
Linda Whitaker was my first hospital visit. And so I got to, from the moment that we came here to El Pico until her last breath, I was at her bedside many a time. And now it's one of the most beautiful things that I do.
Yeah. But not necessarily in a hospice setting. If somebody's just in the hospital, yeah, just being there, meeting them, finding out how they're doing. Yeah, that would be, I think one of the things that I mentioned in the very end of this whole thing, it says, what different thing, I don't think I put that in my thing here, but in the book it had a question of, what things can you change about your life that would make you feel more like a disciple? And one of the things was going and visiting people in a care home. I could do that. I would love that. But there were other things like inviting my neighbors over to my house for dinner. I'm not a people person, so now maybe. But anyway, I love my neighbors and everything, but I'm just not the kind that would invite somebody over for dinner. I don't invite any of you over for dinner. So, yeah.
Sometimes I think young moms and grandparents don't think that the things that they do with their grandkids are important. It's like you have your 3 grandkids here today.
Mm-hmm.
We brought our grandkids to Sunday school. That is just as important as, I mean, they're the future of the church, and we want
Yeah.
them to want to be here. That's a very, very important thing. It's not easy, but it's very important.
Yeah.
One of the great spiritual examples is in Acts 4, First Congregation Forum. They had everything in common. It said no one had any needs, it said, because they were so willing to model the Christian, what we would call a Christian lifestyle, probably to an extreme compared with how we live today. There were these 3,000 or 4,000 people who were unknown to each other apparently until what transpired in Acts 2, and suddenly they were a mass we couldn't separate.
Yeah, I've always wondered about that verse where it talks about they sold everything, but it also adds on the end of that, as someone had need. I don't think it says that they sold their house and all their possessions and now they've got nothing, but that person that was in need has been helped. I think they got rid of things. They made sure a need was taken care of, really, is what I think was happening. If they had a horse and they knew somebody needed a horse, they took care of that. So I think that's more what that verse is talking about. Yeah.
I think every individual knows the difference between right and wrong. Sometimes it's hard to define.
Mm-hmm.
And the church gives us direction on exactly what our moral compass should be. Because I think everybody's looking for what's right and what's wrong.
Right.
They just don't know what it is.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe when 2 years ago, I got in trouble because my dog's tags were expired. I brought this up in class and thing the other day. I don't hide it from anybody, but my dog's tags were expired. I was supposed to go to court for it, and my wife died 2 days before my court date. So I wasn't thinking about it. And anyway, they put out a warrant for my arrest because of that. All this over dog tags. And so anyway, one thing led to another, and I ended up spending the night in jail. And long story short, when I was in there, there were a lot of those guys that you could tell they were searching. Not all of them. Some of them were just bad people. But there was a few of them in there that were like, I don't know really where I went wrong. And I had one guy that he asked me if I was a preacher. So I must have been doing something right. So, but we had, fortunately for me, there was one cell that was with gang members and there was one cell with my guys. And we had a lot of fun. So I am a criminal, just letting y'all know. And it's my dog's fault.
What city do you live in?
But fortunately for me, when I did finally go to court over that, I went to talk to the judge. The judge looked at the paperwork and he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "This is where they told me to go, courtroom D." So I go in there and he said, "Well, you're in the wrong courtroom." Oh, great. So he said, "Go over there and sit down." So I go over there and sit down, and they came back, the DA, he leaned back to me, he said, "What are you in here for?" I said, "Well, my dog's tags were expired." And he goes, "Just a minute." He gets up, he walks out. 5 minutes later, he comes back in, he hands a piece of paper to the court reporter, And the court reporter looks it over, types a few things in, hands it to the judge. He goes, signs off on it, hands it back to her. Anyway, the DA, she gave it to the DA. The DA, you can go. So, as far as I know, nothing happened except the fact that I got to spend the night in jail. So, it was a lot of fun. But I did get to meet quite a few people that were interesting people, and I think I had an impact on a few of their lives. So maybe not to where they'll be Christians, become, followers. Who knows? I just plant a seed. So, what things change us when we get into this relationship with Jesus? Priority?
Priority.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I didn't put that one on there.
For a person not knowing Jesus as opposed to dedicating your life, your lifestyle. Come Sunday, it's not a question, are we going to church? We're going to church.
Yeah.
I mean, when I grew up, Sunday, everything shut down on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Everything shut down. And
Like Chick-fil-A.
with Chick-fil-A, I give high, because there's a lot of Bible studies that go on in Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, I know. I found that out the other day.
I noticed that. But anyway, yeah, your priorities change.
Yeah. Yeah, I know when I was in the Navy, my priority was how fast can I get rid of my paycheck. So I'd get paid on the 15th and the 30th, and man, I was out drinking and carousing, and my life has completely changed because changed my priorities. So, yeah.
Everybody in this room, everybody outside the world, we're going to die. And as Christians, when you become a Christian, you realize dying isn't the end of the road. But we have hope as opposed to people without Christ. And it is amazing how many people are just bereft
Yeah.
when they lose somebody because they don't have any hope of seeing it again. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the precious things as a Christian. That your loved ones are Christians, you get to see them. And that means everything.
Right. Yeah, my sister lives up in Seattle, and she was a Christian up until she moved up there. And she has bounced from one religion to another. You can tell she's looking for something, but she hasn't found it. I would say she has lost hope. If she stayed with the church, I think she would still have hope. But I mean, I think right now she's a Buddhist. I can't remember. But not a whole lot you can do in those situations. Just pray for them. Hopefully they'll come back to their senses and come back to Christ. So Bible study is one. Yeah, John?
I was talking about Bible study. I think one of the first things Jesus taught was, in this world, you will have tribulation. And that we should talk more openly about that. But it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be fair, and it's not going to be nice. We can be nice, and we can be fair, and we can accept the grace that God gives us through Jesus. But this world isn't going to play that out.
Right.
But we can play it out in our lives, and then possibly share that relationship with another person.
Yeah. Now, I think that was brought up here earlier when you said, what was that? It changes who you are, your feelings, your outlook, who you are, and the way you look at other people. So I think it helps quite a bit. So prayer is another thing. Prayer, when we start praying about things, praying about where you need to be, where you need to go, what you need to be doing. We prayed for Paul this morning. We pray for your friend, Ryan. And he does help. There's been too many times that I've seen God at work. So I know we got laid off one time, and I used to work for Boeing. Got laid off, and we were, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Can I say that in class? But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. The bills were sliding, and pretty soon we're behind on all the bills. And that at that point in time, we were praying that something would happen. I'd get back to work or something, and then out of the blue, the state calls and says, "Hey, when you were a firefighter, you had a KPERS account that it's just been sitting there. It's got like $900 in it. What do you want us to do with that?" And I said, "Can you give it to me?" They said, "Sure." So they cut me a check and sent me $900. We got caught back up, and like 2 weeks later, I was back at work. So I've had multiple stories like that, and I'm sure most of you do too, where you can see God working in your life. You're in need, and you pray for it, and you really mean it, and He helps out.
One of the problems is if something like that happens, I just say, wow, what a coincidence.
Yeah,
Instead of remembering,
yeah, exactly. How lucky was I to get that money when I needed it? No, that's not what happened.
There are no instances.
No. Now, I don't fellowship with all of you. I do know most of you, and I think we're all fairly good friends. And I enjoy that. I could spend a lot more time here than I do. Every time I get together with you folks, I have a great time. And so I think that's where the fellowshipping comes in. Hey, you got to stop doing that.
I know. Distraction the teacher.
And life experiences, things that change us to be in this relationship with Christ, the things that happen in our life. Your friend, what if he gets out there and realizes that, maybe he's going in the wrong direction, and then turns back, and you mentioned to him that we prayed for him in class Sunday morning. You don't know where that's going to go. He might pick up on that and think, they prayed for me and I stayed out of trouble. We don't know. Hopefully that's what happens. So, life experiences, my dog tag thing. All right, could someone read Romans 8:29 for me?
For whom he foreknew, he also predestined to become conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren.
Okay, and the things that he points out in here is the conformed to the likeness of his Son, the image of his Son. I think yours said. What does that mean, to be conformed to the image of his Son?
You need to be like Christ.
Right.
You need to follow.
Right. Yeah. And he's given us so many examples to follow. So many examples. Now, and that he might be the firstborn among many brothers. Christ started all this. Whether you want to talk about when he was born in the manger, or whether you want to talk about when he was with Christ when the earth was formed. Either way, he was there from the beginning, and he was the firstborn among us. We are his brothers. And that's one of the things he wanted to point out in this book, was that even though Jesus is the head, he's the one in charge of everything, we are his brothers. And I think that's amazing that I can be that close to him. One thing I wanted to ask, though, this wasn't brought out in the book, and I know this could be a whole class in itself. Some people look at predestined, and they think, well, doesn't that mean that he already knew that you were going to be saved and you were going to go? And no, that's not what it means. Yeah.
Except for those he foreknew.
Right.
Evidently he did know.
Yeah. Yeah. But we're still given the choice. I think he just knows what those choices are going to be. So,
It's hard to fit that in.
yeah, that's a very difficult, yeah.
If
Right.
We all obey the gospel.
That's a very good way to look at that. Yeah.
That for all of us.
Right.
In verse 30 says he called those that he predestined. And so they have to preach the gospel.
You have to answer the call.
They have to answer the call. And then the foreknowledge of God is a foreknowledge complete. He knows all.
Oh, yeah.
At the same time, you have a responsibility. I don't think you can unravel it easily, but you can trust that God is calling every single soul to the side of His Son
Right.
to fight for His fight.
Right. We already covered that. All right. Fishers of men. So we've gone through follow me, and then I will change you, and then now we're looking at fishers of men. Let's take a look over. Well, you all know what happened with Peter, James, and John. Peter, James, and John. When Jesus went down and he was preaching to the crowd, and he said, "Put me out in the water," and then he tells them, why don't you guys go out one more time and do a little bit more fishing, but this time put your nets down on the other side. And they brought in really almost more. They'd almost sank their boats. They brought in so many fish. They had to call their friends, which some of those friends were probably, James and John. But verse 11 especially, Jesus said to Simon, "Don't be afraid. From now on, you will catch men." So they pulled up their boats on the shore and left everything and followed him. When I read that, I think about that rich young ruler who said, "What can I do to become a Christian?" And Jesus said, "Give everything you've got to the poor," and that hit that rich young ruler to the quick, because he couldn't do that. He knew he couldn't do that. And I'm not sure if it's the same verse right after that where he says something about those that follow me will have nothing but a rock to lay their head down on. So this is John 12:26. Anyone who wants to be my disciple must follow me, because my servants must be where I am, and the Father will honor anyone who serves me. So another place where it says, look, you've got to be with me, literally with me. And we can't be with him today, but we are with him. We are Christians because of him. So we are following him. As disciples, we need to make a head level change. Now, this is where I was talking about earlier. We're going to get into head, heart, and hands. That's one of the things he points out in this book. All of those things work together. When you make a head level change, my first thought was, well, I have to change the way I think. That's not what this is talking about. What this is talking about is who is the head. So you have to remember that you're no longer the one in charge. It's Christ that's in charge. Luke 9:23, what does Jesus mean by, "And he said to them all, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." What is meant by that? Yeah.
In verse 51, it says Jesus resolutely set his face toward Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what he was going toward?
Oh, yeah.
When he did that? He was going to his cross. So when he said that prior to him being noticed to going to Jerusalem, he wasn't saying it just to be said or to give a paradigm. He was saying literally, take up your cross.
Right.
I with me today. And then you can be my.
Right. oftentimes, when I'm leading the communion, I read that part about when he went into Gethsemane. He knew what was going to happen, but he did not want to do it. You can tell by his prayer. He wished that that could go away. And he prayed 3 times, please, Father, if you can make this not happen. But he knew what he needed to do. And that's one of the things that I love about him, is that he, being a man and not wanting to do this, knew that he had to do it anyway. Okay. The big ticket item that they mentioned there is that we need to leave ourselves behind. When it says, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and follow me. You have to leave your selfish ambitions, everything. If you had a goal to become the CEO out at Boeing, that may not be the answer. Maybe you were supposed to be a deacon in the church instead. You know, maybe that would get in the way. If you put all of your sight on being the CEO out at Boeing, maybe that's not going to stop you from becoming the Christian you should be. Let's see. I'm trying to hurry up because we really need to get through chapter 2. I think we're already a chapter behind. I think that happens a lot in this class. How long have you been in Matthew? Matthew 5.
About 20 verses over
Yeah.
2 years.
20 verses, 2 years. And this last time you covered 5 verses?
Maybe.
7? Yeah. But that's good. I mean, we got a lot out of that class. So, let's see. Okay, in Acts 3, Peter, while with John, healed a lame man, and Peter taught his second sermon. And Peter and John were then arrested, and they were put into custody. They had to spend the night in jail. That sounds familiar. Anyway, the next day, they ended up going before the people. And in Acts 4:13, when those who arrested Peter and John saw how bold they were, what did they attribute that boldness to? They marveled that they realized that they had been with Jesus. That is just amazing to me, that they were able to look at him and say, this man's been with Jesus. Now, they surely had to know. But, yeah. Did you have something? Or were you just... Yeah.
I think sometimes we are creatures of comfort,
Oh, sure.
and so we'll go for comfort before looking at the far view, and the immediate comfort.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, comfort's so easy. It's so easy to just... I just want, as you can see, I spend a lot of time in my recliner. So I'm not a go out and run person. That recliner is my comfort, and chicken fried steak is my comfort food. Yeah.
I like the idea that having been with Jesus, I don't have to come up with the deep, heavy truths. I can just rely on him having already spoken them, and I just share them. I was working for the railroad and had a fellow that was working alongside me, and we had 40 or 50 miles to go to where we were going to do our job. And so we got to talking about marriage and what's better, a traditional dating situation where you wait until you're married to have a sexual relationship. And anyway, the talk was very animated, but I kept talking about how God set it up for a man to leave his father and mother. Anyway, on and on and on the conversation went. And 6 months later, a year later, trying to say, you know what? I was just watching a documentary, and you're right, John. I don't have to know everything. I have to know what Jesus said. I have to trust what he says,
Yeah.
and then share those things. And then my knowledge comes alongside of it. It's not first.
Yeah. Well, as we go through this class, you will notice that I can say, well, I remember where it said something about Peter, James, and John going, but I can't tell you where it's at. I have never, ever been one that memorized the Bible. But if you have read the Bible, you know the stories, that's an immense help. If you can say, well, I know Jesus said to do this, or I know Paul, when he was on the road to Damascus, this is what happened to him. You know, there's so many stories in there about the way Christ works in our life. So, okay, so we've gone through a head level change. Now we're going to look at a heart level change. Ephesians 3:16-19. I pray that out of his glorious riches he may strengthen you with power through his spirit and inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And I pray, now mention how many times it says love in here. I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power, together with all the saints, to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, and to know that this love surpasses knowledge, that you may be fulfilled to the measure of all the fullness of God. I could not tell you one thing that I did that night when I spent the night in jail that would make anybody think that I was a Christian. I did do a little bit of singing to myself. I wasn't leading the congregation out there, but praying to myself. But I think more than anything, love. One of the things that I think led them to think I might have been different than them was that I loved them all. I talked to the guys that were pimps. I talked to the guys that were in there for armed robbery, all kinds of different folks that were there, and it didn't matter to me. I just liked talking to the people there. I like just dealing with people in general. Like I said, I'm not a people person, but I think maybe I am. So. Fishers of men. So we've gone, when it says fishers of men, what was Christ's mission? In Luke 19, 1-10, the story of Zacchaeus, we all know that story. He climbs a tree. Jesus says, come on down. I got to go eat with you. And what do the people that are around him say? Why is he going with him? He's a sinner. Why should he go eat with him? He should be eating with me. But I don't think they understood Jesus' mission. So in verse 10, Jesus says he came to seek and save the lost. My job is not to go to coffee every morning with John or every Tuesday morning. My job is not to be here for services on Sunday morning and sit in the pew. I'm here to help seek and save the lost. Jesus is the head. I'm supposed to be following him, and that's what I need to be about, is being there to try to help seek and save the lost. So, yeah. And everybody in this room knows what a TGNY was. We're all old enough for that.
Right. Well,
Oh, yeah.
or you messed up.
Mhm.
That's what you're describing for us in Christ. We're endeavoring to become right
Right,
close.
right.
And those opportunities that you took, child,
Yeah, I like to think that maybe I planted a seed. You never know. So, yeah,
We also have to be open to, we may have a plan in our head that it's gonna go this way, and this is how we're gonna do it. And life happens and it doesn't always work that way. You may end up with the same result, but it doesn't always work. The model airplane, if you think of it. My mom's working on a baby quilt. And she's struggling because she's getting older and this and that. And she finally just said, I'm not tearing it apart again. She just rearranged the squares and sewed it together, made a beautiful baby quilt. It wasn't like it wasn't exactly
Sure.
like the instructions, but you have to rearrange sometimes and maybe refocus. And if we still use God as the basis, it's going to turn out okay.
well, classes already were overdrawn here. I never heard a bell. Did anybody else?
Yeah.
Anyway, one of the things that I love about Paul is Paul said, I become to that person what they need me to be in order to bring more to Christ. And whether that means he acts more like a Jew or acts more like a Greek or acts like a Roman or whatever he needed to be at that moment to bring someone to Christ, that's what he did. And I love that. I love that we have a book here, the Word of God, that allows us to make it fit our lives to make us better Christians. So, all right, we'll leave it there and we'll pick up here. We did not get through chapter 2. Have a good day, everybody. Yeah, work on it.
Like a landing zone.